What's up, guys? It's Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down the difference between a 5-star wide receiver and a 0-star wide receiver. So we're going to be comparing and contrasting some of the similarities and the main differences between a guy who's highly ranked going to go play Power 5 college football and somebody who's maybe not as highly as ranked and not going to play Power 5. So I hope this video helps you guys out, but also, fellas, if you're a wide receiver and you want to know a specific on-field training routine that you could do on a day-to-day basis, check out that very first link in the description below for our 28-day on-field wide receiver workout plan. What you'll get access to is a 4-week daily schedule. We give you the exact sets, reps. There's over 100 plus drills we give you in this, and we give you a video example of each one. So check out that very first link below if interested. Let's get started. So this first rider is going to be from Brandon Innes out of Broward County, Florida, and this is just a pretty good example of the difference on the stride length of a 5-star guy and a 0-star guy. So we're going to take a look at Brandon Innes first. He's obviously the 5-star guy, and then we'll take a look at the second route. So anytime that you're running routes, this is going to be like a comeback route, for example, right? This is maybe like an 8 back to 6 yard comeback. I'd say, or 8 back to 7. Maybe it's like timing out route. I'm not exactly sure what they're trying to work right here, but I want you to pay attention to his stride. Whether it's a single cut, whether he's snapping down, when he's bursting from this line to that cone, he is in full stride the entire time. That is something that a DB is going to look for. When a DB is playing you in man coverage or even zone coverage, off man, press man, zone, you need to make him move. You need to make him backpedal. You need to make him open up his hips. And how you can do that is by running full speed, but also running full stride. What a guy does not want to see, or what you don't want to see when you're looking at a wide receiver, whether you're recruiting him, trying to gauge how talented he is him being uncomfortable breaking like this in full stride. Now, this is much easier said than done. Being able to do this requires a lot of leg strength, requires a lot of hip flexibility, ankle stability, knee stability. All of those things are required to do this. So I'm not saying that if you're, maybe like a 12, 13-year-old wide receiver who's not at his, it's not at his strongest yet, don't go out there and try to do this. You need to do things that will build into that. You need to be doing realistic on-field drills that can build into this. But that is one of the main differences. And we're going to show you how you see that in the other wide receiver. This is just so important, fellas, because if I'm a DB, and let's say I'm running hip to hip, let's say it's man coverage, you get the outside release and you're running a comeback, and I start to feel your stride start to shorten, that's a form of slowing down. Everybody knows that you don't want to slow down. Everybody knows that you want to be able to sell fade. But when you shorten those strides, you stop selling fade. Let's play this thing again, full speed one more time. Great job by Innes showcasing running full stride and being able to break full stride. And that is something that those 5-star elite level guys have. Okay, so now this is going to be another comeback route, but I just want you to pay attention to his feet at the top of the break. So he's bursting up, starts to shorten the stride a little bit. Excuse me, this is an out route, but this is kind of what I'm talking about right here. When you have a guy who's off, and you're trying to get him to open up his hips and flip to the fade, you got to go. You have to run as hard as you can. You got to run in full stride. You have to keep a good pad level, good body language if you want a disciplined DB to move. Now, a crappy DB, you might just have to run at him and he'll probably move out of there. So when this wide receiver runs up, you see how he comes off the ball, he comes off fast, and then right before the break point, you see how his strides start to chop. He stays full stride, then his strides start to shorten. He starts taking these quick, choppy little steps. Now, again, the only reason guys do this is because it's easier to break when you're taking choppy steps, because it doesn't require as much leg strength, ankle stability, knee stability, hip flexibility like we showed in the last example. It's easier, and that's why you do it, and I understand that. That's why a lot of guys do this, but we cannot take those choppy steps on the stem. Like if you come off the ball and maybe like it's a release and you're taking choppy steps, you give a move and then go, that's one thing. But when you run full speed, you're coming off the ball fast, and then you start to chop and slow your speed down, then make a break, that is the biggest indicator you can give to a DB. The whole goal is to be able to eliminate all indicators to him. Make him think that we are running a fade until it's not a fade. And that comes down from your stride, your speed, and then obviously your pad level. So let's play this thing again, full speed one more time, and then we will get to 2 more examples of kind of the same idea off of the line with press releases. So make sure, fellas, if you're trying to play football at the next level, they are looking for that smoothness into your routes, you being able to self-fade, you being able to get separation. So keeping a good stride, keeping a good speed, and actually running hard with your routes is what will do that. Okay, so now we're going to talk about just one of the things that you see with, some of the top tier wide receivers, especially guys in college, especially guys in the NFL, is that they emphasize the details. Like the little things are not little to them. And that's something that I try to get across with every single receiver that I work with, that those details are details for a reason. They matter. So let's watch this full speed. This is going to be a slide release crossover, and he's running a slant route. Now we're going to look, this is from Brandon Innes as well. Then we're going to take a look at another slide release from a guy who's not a 5-star guy and the mistakes that he makes and receivers all over the country make. So when he does this slide release, when do you do a slide? A slide is when you have inside shade press coverage. You slide to attack his outside shoulder to hopefully get him to open up to the fade so you could slip underneath. Now, the reason why they do this like kind of slide release right here is because maybe a slower tempo with the quarterback. Like as a quarterback, you got two kinds of drops out of shotgun. Well, maybe more than that, but let's call it two for right now. You got quick game scenario where you're just catching the ball and throwing, and that's a lot of slants, that's a lot of hitches, 5-yard outs. And then you have, maybe a 3-step passing concept where you could still throw a slant, but the slant is a slower pace. So that is when you would use something like this slide release. It's a later developing route. So you don't want to use it on the quick developing route. On maybe a quick developing route, you would do something called like a diamond release, where you take 3 steps at the outside shoulder, he flips, and you slip underneath. That's called the diamond release. So the slide is just a slower version of that. Now, on the diamond, on the slide, you have to attack this DB vertical if you want him to move, because you have to threaten him with what? We talked about it with the stride length. What is every route supposed to look like? It's supposed to look like a fade. So when you slide off the line, you have to attack vertically, almost at a 45-degree angle to make this DB think fade. If I can attack him at a 45, he's forced to make a decision. When you attack 45 like this, he could either sit inside and give up the fade if we were to run a fade, or he could shuffle out and try to play with you because you're attacking him vertically. The mistake that a lot of wide receivers will make, and we'll show it in a second, is they'll try to do this slide to the outside, but they will stay behind the line of scrimmage. They will go lateral. They will go towards the sideline. That DB is just going to sit because at the end of the day, you still have to run a slant. So let's attack his shoulder vertical, and let's try to get him to move off that platform. Now, you might ask me, well, what if this guy sits to the inside and I do this? Then the next time you have a fade called, we come out with the exact same release, and I go run the fade. You see guys like Devontae Adams, Keenan Allen, they do that all the dang time. It's about taking what he gives you. But that little detail, fellas, is something that a lot of younger wide receivers, the no-star guys, the not really highly as recruited guys, don't do. They make that cardinal mistake of going lateral. So let's play this full speed, and then we'll break down the mistake. So great job attacking vertical by Innes, selling to the outside, and then winning on the slant. So this wide receiver kind of does 2 mistakes here. He uses this slide release and goes and runs like a deeper route. That slide release, fellas, is not something that you can use on anything but a slant or a fade. Those are the only 2 that I personally like. It may be if like you have outside leverage and you're running like a quick flat and it's maybe a little bit slower developing. But more often than not, when it's a deeper route like a dig, an out, a post, you got to go get up into the route. You got to do something quicker than a slide release. But still, we're going to look at the technique on this because receivers make this mistake all the dang time, even when they're running a slant. So let's play at full speed. So he slides and he just goes outside. Now, let's talk about this like he were to be running a slant. Let's treat it like it's a slant. So he goes here. He does that same like kick step that Innes did. But watch where he goes. He goes towards the sideline. This DB is probably not the most patient guy in the world because that DB should have just sat. He should have just sat right there because this guy's not threatening anybody vertically. If this DB would have sat here to the inside, if he tries to run the slant, he's going to run right into him. If he slides vertically or if he slides laterally like this, and let's say, remember, what did I say if he sits? You could use it the next time you run a fade. But if you slide like this and you go lateral and that DB sits and then you go try to run a fade, you still have to get to here. So who do you think has a better angle? He does because you went flat and then up, not attack vertical and then go up. So there's these little details, fellas. You have to emphasize this if you're a wide receiver. Especially, I say this because a lot of guys who are in high school youth ball, they're not the big freak athlete guys. Like you see the people make the excuse all the time about guys who are playing Power 5 ball. Like, and I say it too because I really honestly believe this in some cases that, that guy's just, he's there because he's fast. He's there because he's big. Especially if you're not that guy who's fast or big or just like a genetic freak, you have to emphasize these details because these details are what get you open. These little things can give you that advantage if you lack size or speed. So make sure, fellas, if you're doing any kind of release, any release whatsoever, we are threatening him vertically. That is what makes a disciplined guy move. If this guy is patient, he will not bite on anything that is behind the line. Let's watch the thing full speed. Again, right idea if it were a little bit faster paced. I don't like to slide on anything deeper, but we cannot go lateral with my releases, fellas. All right, you guys, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, don't hesitate to leave those in the comment section below. Always appreciate the feedback. It's always great to hear from you guys. And again, fellas, if you'd like a 4-week wide receiver field workout schedule, everything you should do on the field for wide receivers for route running, releases, hands, everything, check out that very first link in the description below. I'll see you guys next time.